Hi, my name is Mercedes Coffman. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I feel honored to be a contributor to this speaker's series. The first question I'd like to ask is, what would you think is the thing that people fear the most? Some of you may guess the common answer. Some of you may guess death. Others may guess things like public speaking or even heights. Now, regardless of which one of these you chose, what they all have in common is one thing, and that is uncertainty. The unknown. And so therefore what people fear more than anything else is uncertainty, not knowing the outcome of a particular situation or event. This is also why human beings are considered creatures of habits. We do whatever in our power on a day-to-day basis to avoid the sense of uncertainty, the sense of the unknown. Now take, for example, a classroom setting, which most of us are familiar with. Even though students have the freedom to pick a different seat each class, you'll notice that students will pick the same seat that they've selected at the beginning of the semester to be their seat throughout the entire semester. Even for those of you who commute to and from work, for those of you who have a particular routine in the morning, it's not because you're forced to take the same roads or because you're forced to have a routine or structure in your days. It's because we do not like not knowing what our days will be like. Now, one of the psychological reasons behind this is that a sense of consistency and structure makes us believe that we are in control of our days, our experiences, and our lives. But how much control do we actually have? Most of us know that as adults, we can't control other adults. But how much can we actually control ourselves? How much control do we have about everything that goes on inside of us? And about the things about ourselves. Now, some of you may say, oh, I am certain that I am very much in control of myself. But then I'd like to challenge you and ask you, are you in charge and can you control your heartbeat at this moment? Can you control what your kidneys are doing at this moment and how they're functioning? And the answer is no, because a lot of what happens within us, biologically and physiologically, is a natural occurrence. The more we try to control our biological functioning, the more we interfere and maybe even hinder the process. The less we stress and the less we try to control our natural occurrence and our bodily functions, the more likely we allow our immune system and our mental health to function at its best potential and capacity. The irony is this: the psychological need for control is the exact same thing that stresses us out physiologically. And when the body is physiologically and biologically stressed, it releases stress hormones. And these stress hormones is what makes people sick, what suppresses the immune system. And so it's very important to be mindful of what we're actually doing when we're trying to be in control of situations. And so this is why it's so incredibly important to be aware that our psychological need for control, because we think that it will lessen or lower our stress, is actually precisely the thing and the cause of our physiological stress. It's precisely the thing that tenses us up, that gives us muscle aches, that suppresses the immune system, makes us more susceptible to colds and infections. This is precisely why, because we're working against our natural nature instead of just surrendering and accepting change as it comes and trusting the process while it occurs. Now, another really important reason why we must learn to accept and embrace change is because it's not regarding our health only, but it also is very important for our growth, for our expansion. The human brain is meant to evolve and consistently make new discoveries and connections. When we fear new experiences, new patterns, new adventures in our lives, in our work, in our relationships, we create a neurological shortcut that, although we may think may bring us a sense of comfort and security, also what it does is it intensifies our bouts of fear and anxiety when faced with changes in life or career or relationships, when we are faced with new challenges or adventures, which is a constant in life. Another reason why it's very important for us to welcome, explore, and embrace uncertainty and change is because We need a sense of novelty. Novelty is what releases our levels of dopamine, and the brain needs healthy levels of dopamine. Dopamine is our motivating neurotransmitter. It's what motivates us to take on new challenges, to explore new discoveries. And when we insist on creating inflexibility in our days, in our routines, we not only stunt our mental, emotional, and even physical well-being, but we also lower our dopamine levels. And when we have low dopamine levels, we experience depressive-like symptoms. And so now to the vocal point of our talk. How do we navigate uncertainty and own our future? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to challenge ourselves to think outside the box and to reframe the way we perceive things, the way we've been conditioned to perceive things. Most of us have been conditioned to take life very seriously. We must do well, we must excel, and we must make lots of money. And so when we're conditioned since childhood to take things very seriously, we start creating this very tense and hypervigilant nervous system that tells us that there's no room for error, no room for failure, no room for taking big risks in our lives, in our relationships, or in our jobs or career choices. So how do we change this? We have to go back to accepting our basic nature, which requires for us to accept failure and making mistakes. And although it is good to have life goals and to make commitments to those goals and to have structure in order to follow through on those goals, we have to go back to the basics of nature and to have fun and allow for things to flow naturally like water. A stressed and inflexible mind is much less likely to be creative and see opportunities where there aren't any than a mind that is curious. A curious mind is a resourceful mind. A curious mind is able to see opportunities where others can't. But in order to have a curious mind, we must have a stabilized and balanced nervous system. In order to have a curious mind, we must accept and embrace failure and mistakes. In order to have a curious mind, we must have fun. We must enjoy the things we do. We must be mindful in the things we do and be present in the moment. And so what are some practical ways to navigate uncertainty and own your future? Number 1, reframe your perspective on uncertainty and embrace it. Welcome it. As a Harvard Business School article stated, uncertainty and opportunity are two sides of the same coin. Wherever there is a new opportunity, you better believe there will be uncertainty. Don't let that deter you. 2, don't take everything so seriously. When we perceive challenges and boundaries and opportunities as fixed, we'll trigger our mind to take on a win-lose approach. And when we have a win-lose approach, we'll fear losing. And when we fear losing, we now not only release higher levels of stress hormones, but will then sabotage the curious mind and alert the critical mind, the fearful mind, to take the lead. 3, incorporate more spontaneity in your life. Spontaneity increases our levels of dopamine. Dopamine being our neurotransmitter, it's incredibly important in our relationships, in our career choices, and in our personal lives. When we change up our routine from fixed to flexible, we release higher levels of dopamine. So any spontaneous change in your routine, whether your fashion style or the routes you drive to work, or the way you structure your business meetings, these things release dopamine naturally. And when we have more dopamine, we adapt to life's changes more effectively and more easily. 4, become curious about people, places, and things. Unlearn the belief that you already know a lot and remain a student of life. Become curious about things. Recognize that there is still so much to learn regardless of your age or your experience. When you take on this perspective of curiosity, you not only lower your stress responses, but you adapt to uncertainty much more effectively and much easier. 5, stop limiting yourself. Accept that you are more than your degrees, your job title, or your responsibilities, and challenge yourself to learn new things about yourself each day. 6, incorporate hobbies into your week. Hobbies are a great way to reset and recharge the brain and the nervous system. Hobbies are also a great way for embracing uncertainty and for allowing you to have fun. And 7, practice mindfulness and emotional fitness. This means exploring your emotions regularly so that you may become better equipped at self-regulating during life's uncertain and unexpected moments. The most important aspect to owning our future is to own our present moment exactly as it is. The more time we spend trying to avoid uncertainty or control ourselves or others, the less time we spend in our present moment. And if we don't know how to embrace and own our present moment, we will certainly not know how to embrace and own our future. So how do we own our future? By living our lives today. Thank you all for listening.